Afternoon everyone, Happy New Year's. It's New Year's Eve today. I took a little bit of a break from filming while my mum was here visiting for Christmas. So we're out in the garden this afternoon to catch up on some, so I thought I'd give you a little bit of a short garden tour and let you know what we're doing here. And this would be good, really good documentation for me for end of December, knowing what's going on for next year, because the recording of what's going on has been really important. The weather tracking and the knowing what happened last year has been really important for me to be able to track what I need to plant and when to expect things to actually ripen, because my expectations were a little bit off compared to what the actuality was with our weather. Out in our newer section of garden we have some raspberry canes that don't seem to have ever done anything. I don't know if they're going to. They were bought bare rooted, they were planted, they were watered and everything else, and they just don't seem to have done anything. So we're giving them the benefit of the doubt, leaving them for this season, and we'll reassess the next one. We have a whole row of strawberries, and then we have some arches with a variety of things on them. So I have some Kajari Melons climbing these trellises, and they will fall off when they're ripe. So I'm going to create some little slings for the ones that are a decent size, so that as they ripen they're not going to fall off onto the ground and smash. This row here is the raspberry canes that just don't seem to be doing anything. I'm not sure. There appears to be root structure in underneath when I have a dig around, so we'll just leave them and see how they go. Then the next row is all our strawberries, which are doing wonderfully. We're getting plenty of eating strawberries from these. There'd never be enough for preserving or anything, but there's plenty for fresh eating each day. We go through and we pick them, and I think there's a red one up here at the moment. Where are we? Red one just there. Could probably do with another day. So we're just guiding the runners to all the spots that have spare space, so that hopefully we'll fill up this bed. These are the Kajari melons, so I'm just going to create slings for these ones. In this bed we've got snow peas, pole beans and some loofah. So the loofah was a late put in because we had the snow peas don't like the heat, so they died off, so we decided to put something else in here, and it was really struggling, but now that it's gone in the ground it's doing really well, a little too well, because the surface up here is actually solar panels, so we don't want it to go up over the solar panels, we need it to stay below, so I keep on training it back down the trellis. But anyone who gardens knows that plants like to go up towards the sun, so it's going to be a constant battle, and then I'll probably have to top them at some point to stop them from continuing to climb up once it fills up this section of trellis. We still have a couple of snow pea plants here that held on, but they're tiny, and something has really seriously taken bites out of our bean plants. So a lot of them, anytime they get a climb, they get eaten off. So we've got a few that are going, which is really nice, but most of them are pretty stagnated at small bush level and will not ever get beans. The one with all the red flowers that I showed last time, all the flowers and the bean buds got eaten before they could turn into beans. So this section of the garden isn't covered by netting or anything, so I think that the problem is that it's just a little too open. It could be birds, it could be anything, I'm not real sure. So the plan is to eventually cover this whole section in netting as well, but until then it's a little open to the elements. In between the arches here we've got a couple of citrus trees that we only acquired this year and planted into some half barrel pots. I slung this other Kajari melon just here. We got some borage planted in here, and these are noodle beans, and again pest pressure has been really huge on them, and that most of them just aren't going anywhere. There's a couple more citrus. We've got a finger lime here and another orange here, and then more of the noodle beans here, because the idea was that they would climb across the trellis to meet each other. And these ones actually have some runners going up, so we might be lucky enough to get some beans off of those. This one here does have a bean on it, a red noodle bean just there. Oh, two of them actually. So it might recover. We'll have to wait and see. This bed here is our watermelon bed. Now, watermelon likes it really hot, so it hasn't really even started taking off yet. We'll see how it goes. The weed pressure in here is really bad. We badly need to get that under control before they take off. This is the pumpkin bed I showed you before that's got some issues. Someone suggested borers, but there's no damage at the stem of the plant. It just seems to be the foliage that's dying off. So I'm not real sure, but the weed pressure here too is pretty bad. So whether that's just part of it, that it's just struggling to fight with the weeds as well. It is still getting some new growth in lots of different places though, so for the moment I'm just letting it go. We'll harvest the pumpkins that we get and that'll be fine. This is the old potato bed that we still haven't done anything with yet, so maybe we'll leave it for a bit and plant fall veggies in it as we clear the rest of the pumpkins out as well. Now the tomatoes are doing really well. We've got some curling issues of the branches, but the leaves themselves are pretty healthy looking, so I think it's just a growth issue. I think it's potentially the amount of rain that we've had recently. So I'm not going to treat them with anything for now, because I don't want to risk the bees with the chemicals. So whilst they're still throwing fruit and everything else, I'm just going to leave them as is, and I think I'm going to side dress them with some blood and bone meal to help with calcium uptake. We continue to have some issues with powdery mildew in the zucchini because of all the rain. So I've got Darryl spraying it for me with some bicarb spray to try and help battle the powdery mildew, in the hopes that we can extend the life of these plants as long as we can and get as much out of them before they die off. Probably won't get a full season out of them, but whatever we can get is beneficial. So tomato wise, I'm growing a few different types. This first really short statured, very tomato covered plant here is a totem. Some of them seem to have stunted really quickly, but then one beside it is taking a fair bit of height. It's a bit more spread out. The tomatoes are a little better spaced, whereas this one is I'm not real happy with the growth habit of it. I don't think I would plant it again. This other determinate tomato here is ES58, which is a hybrid. It's the first time I've tried this particular tomato. The tomatoes are a lot larger. I'm still having some issues with bug damage, and I have found some blossom end rot on a couple, and I blame that on the amount of rain. But look at the size of the tomato for a determinate. That's pretty impressive. So I'm pretty happy with these determinates, and I would probably plant these again. And then have some grossless tomatoes, and they've got some really nice trellises of fruit there. And then these ones are another hybrid that I think they were a hybrid, I'll have to check, but that I decided to try, called Tropic, and I'm not overly impressed with the growth of the plants. The plants are slow to take off, and a lot of the flowers are dropping, and the plants just aren't particularly healthy. They may just not be suited for the climate here, so we'll see. And we have some Rouge de Marmande, which I'm probably saying completely wrong. And there is some, oh look, yeah, nice red one here, but see, yeah, we've got some issues on the bottoms of those ones as well, so we'll see. It's another new variety. And then on the end we've got Riesentraub, which again are a new variety, but I'm really happy with these so far. We've got some, they're a smallish fruit, but they're ripening up first. They're probably the first ones that have ripened, and they come in these really extensive trellises, which is kind of nice. And the plants are extending up quite high and continuing to throw fruit. On this side are the Tommy Toes, which are always a favourite, and they grow nice long trellises of tomatoes. Then we've got some pink bumblebees, which are a really tasty tomato, and when they ripen up they're a pink and stripy tomato, which is kind of neat. The plants, we grew them last year and they weren't a huge producer, but I decided I want to try them again because I really liked the tomato. We'll see how they go. We have some labels gone on this one. I'm not entirely sure what these ones are. And then we have some blueberries, which are blue toned tomatoes. Got a friend in here. Let's see if I can get him in focus. There we go. Blueberries, some beefsteaks, which we don't always have much luck with, but the ones that we do get are really nice. And some more of the tropics. So see, the tropics seem to be growing well on this side in this bed versus the other one. So I'm not real sure. I'll keep track and assess them as they go. The middle row to the tomatoes is full of sunflowers and herbs and flowers. So whole row of sunflowers that I'll probably replant. I've got some replanted in between in the hopes that as I harvest the grown ones I get some more coming through. I have some evening primrose that's been devoured by aphids but is actually flowering, which is kind of nice. Some calendula which needs cutting back a bit, and I've got some lovely zinnias and the first zinnia to flower, which is really nice. Comfrey, which I just let grow wild and I cut back as needed. Some borage, chamomile, and I think there might be some parsley in there as well, with some purslane in the middle, but the bugs really like the purslane, so it doesn't grow very much. I've got a couple of blueberry seedlings in the middle here too, in pots that will be transplanted out eventually. You can see tomatoes on this side. You can see how many, it's pretty neat. So the end bed here is overrun by weeds, which is something I really need to get on top of, but is basically entirely asparagus. So we've all let it fern up. We need to put some structure in to hold it up off the pathway so it makes it easier to weed, but there's about 6 crowns planted in this row here. The last 2 rows of tomatoes, we've got some of the totems again. They're really, really short statured, lots and lots of fruit on them, but because they're determinate, that's all the fruit that they'll grow. So I'm not real sure how happy I am with them, the space that they require. Along this row we've got mostly Tommy Toes and a couple of other cherry style tomatoes mostly, and then this entire row here is paste tomatoes. So we've got San Marzano, Roma, and Amish paste. Now I've never had much luck with paste tomatoes, to be honest. They tend to suffer, anything that's elongated tends to suffer really badly from blossom end rot in my garden, but I got quite a few that are looking okay. I have had to take some off for the blossom end rot, and here's this twisting that I was talking about. Let me get further away. Where are we? Let's see if we can focus on something here. There we go. So it's like twisting itself around the stems. I'm not real sure. But the leaves look okay. They need a prune again, and there's some caterpillar poo, so obviously I've got some hornworms or something that I need to look at. But in general, the plants look really healthy, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do about it yet. I might side dress them and then see if they perk up from that. So I was just looking while filming and found these 3 beefsteak tomatoes with the blossom and rot going on. So there's 3 of them here that are completely gone. So not sure. Also wanted to show you the Gardener's Delight tomato plants. They're definitely one that I will grow again. They have these really lovely long trellises. So I've just pulled all of these off with blossom and rot off this row of paste tomatoes. So I'm unlikely to grow paste tomatoes again next year if this is the same results, because last year I had similar issues, never got on top of it, got very poor harvests. So this year I decided to give a row a chance, but if it doesn't work, I'm not going to try paste tomatoes again next year. It just takes up too much space for an effort and time for too little reward. This is my ginger and horseradish bed. It's going great guns, and the next bed up is my leeks, so it's doing really well. The bed on the end is some scattered onions that I had left over, and some Jerusalem artichoke that reseeded from last year. And this middle row is onions. Now, I don't know whether I picked the wrong time to put them out or not, but a lot of them are dying off in small bulbs, and that's fine. I'll use them as small bulbs, but it would have been nice to have got a crop of really nice big ones. So I did cluster plant these like Charles Dowding, and maybe my soil is just not good enough for that purpose. Everything's really dry at the moment. It's we get all this rain and then we get this massive heat, and because the beds are only in their 1st or 2nd year, there's just not enough organic matter in them to hold the water well. We do struggle, which is why we've got the drip line in them. The problem with the drip line ends up being that we've only got an 800 litre tank that's hooked up to it. So to water, you basically can run the whole 800 litres through each set of drip line, and we have 2 sets of drip line going 2 different directions. So you need to go to the bore and fill up the tank each time you want to water. So there has to be a bit of a structure of time to go and fill up and put the water in the tank, and you have to pump the water from the IBC into the tank and then run it through the drip lines. And because the rain has been so consistent, we haven't managed to find our stride in that schedule. So we're not using the drip line anywhere near as much as we had intended to this year, but hopefully we can get a little bit of a structure going and a little bit of a routine and get it working better as we go along, because having the consistent watering through the drip lines of the garden beds will definitely help with the development of some of the plants, because some of the plants just don't like this inconsistent watering that they're getting. But with so much rain, we can't water too much either, because, well, we just about got irrigation flooding recently with the amount of rain that we got. So the weather out here is a little fickle, and we're still learning to garden around the weather. So we'll see how we go. This row here is my capsicums and chilies beds. I've double planted all of them to help support each other, but they grew at slightly different rates, so they probably could have done with some staking. We haven't had, I've got, some of them are flowering and some of them are fruiting, but we've got some pest pressure, and because they've fallen over, it's leaning on the ground, which means that the pests are eating the fruit as well. So I need to come through here and put some stakes in without damaging the root structures to try and get them doing better. It's a really difficult thing out here. I definitely feel like each year, even if I succeed at something, I'm failing at something else. And it might be something that I grew really well the year before, and I just can't get it to grow this year. So the gardening is, it's hard. We want to grow our food, we want to be sustainable in that, but we also like eating, coming out to the garden and picking my own tomatoes, or pulling up some beetroot or zucchini for my meals. It's fantastic. The food tastes better. I know where it's coming from. I can pick just as much as I need for a meal, rather than having some sit in the fridge and go bad because I didn't get a chance to use it. It can stay on the vine until such time as I need it, and that way it's fresh and ripe and ready to go. But sometimes I feel like the cost in time, money, emotionally, that maybe I'd be better off just buying the stuff by the carton like I did at the fruit and veg store in season. That maybe it would be more cost effective to just continue to do that and preserve it in season as I get it from the fruit and veg shop. I don't know. We're not giving up on these yet. It has only been a couple of years and it takes time, but the weed and pest pressure this year has been really bad, and the weather has not helped at all. We desperately need to get some cardboard and wood chipping down in the paths to help with the weed pressure. I think that would make a huge difference, and it would make it more pleasant out here to garden if you're not trying to wade through all the weeds and the grass and stuff as well, but it also wouldn't be taking nutrients from the soil. So I don't think the weed pressure is normally this bad, but because of all the rain, it's gotten even worse. So there's these pros and cons. You get all this rain, which is great for growth, but then you suffer from powdery mildew or fungal disease on the tomatoes, or your weeds overrun your plants, and it's all just such a give and take. And I keep on telling myself that it's progress, not perfection, that it doesn't need to be 100%. You need to be making progress each year and learning, and each year I learn something new which helps for the next year, but it does feel like I fail a lot, and Darryl is forever up me for saying it, but you're not failing, you are doing better, but it's hard to see. So this video, being a tour video sort of thing at the end of December, is going to give me a good focal point to have a look at how far I've come, but also help me for next year. It is raining, of course. It's not supposed to rain today, but we're doing, as I said, the February weather, late afternoon storms, so I'm going to have to go in. So very quickly, this here is our beetroot bed, which we are currently harvesting from as needed. There's some really nice size, I think I just pulled the last lot of big ones, but there's some really nice size beets in here, so we just pull them and roast them as we want. This needs to all come out and be replanted shortly because beetroot will grow. I'll get another crop of beetroot. All the zucchini are doing well, even with the powdery mildew, but they're definitely need another good pruning and harvest, and they're still doing okay. And then quickly, before the camera gets too wet, in our herb space, the beans are going great. We're getting a lot of beans off this. The plants aren't overly healthy, but they're throwing off lots of beans, so that's the main thing. And all the herbs are still just going wild. Badly need to weed and stuff in here, but again, I really need cardboard wood chips to cover the paths to make that easier, and we just can't afford a wood chipper at the moment. We did find someone who's willing to deliver some wood chips out here, some hardwood chips, but it's 11 cubic meters as a minimum order, and it's $45 per cubic meter. So after Christmas, that's not particularly feasible, so we'll have to see how we go. So I better get back inside because it's starting to pour. Came in from the rain, so it's stopped now, of course, but you know, that's the way it works. So for New Year's Eve today, something a little bit special. I made cupcakes, and I decided to ice them. Now, I don't normally ice our cakes. I don't normally make cupcakes or muffins or anything, actually, because I find it so much easier to just make a slab of something and slice it than to make individual serves. So I decided to make cupcakes today, chocolate cupcakes from Sally's Baking Addiction, I think the recipe was. I'll put the link in the bottom. And I used Jessica from Three River Homestead marshmallow fluff recipe again, but I reduced the gelatin to 2 tablespoons and then piped it on the top for icing. So dairy-free cupcakes, dairy-free icing, and just something a little bit special. I'll give you a look. So this is what they look like, and let me get one in focus. And the icing has set like soft marshmallow, which is kind of neat. I had some prawns left over from Christmas, so I'm cooking some up with some of our homegrown potatoes and some ghee and garlic for dinner for Darryl and I. The kids had potato soup with pasta in it, and I might try our dog jumping on something, just a sec. might try our raspberry lime cordial with some soda stream and a dash of vanilla vodka as a celebratory drink for the evening. We don't really celebrate New Year's Eve. We've got 6 kids, so it's not something that has ever been on our radar for a long time. So it's just too hard to think about drinking while having small children. Alcohol's just not really part of our lives as such. So, but it's nice to just do something special to bring in the new year. Though I probably won't even stay up to midnight. It's unlike me to stay up past midnight. So that's it from us today, and this will be my last Vlogmas video. So from this point on, I'm going to have to try and figure out some structure or some subject matters for each day's video. I'll probably do them 3 times a week. I'll probably do them every 3rd day, I think, will be a good time for me to have time off from editing of an evening for some nights and other nights edit and that sort of thing. So I'll try and work up a schedule and figure out what I'm going to do, and let me know in the comments if there's anything in particular you want me to cover, and I'll attempt to do so. So have a great New Year's, everyone, and I hope next year is a bit better than this year was for everyone. And if you'd like to see more, please subscribe. See you next time.